And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, August 2nd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to discuss today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap the Hall of Fame game from last night between the Bears and the Texans. It's nice to actually recap a game finally. So we will do that here in the start of the show. Then we'll talk about the lawsuit regarding the Sunday ticket. So the decision on that was overturned for the NFL in the NFL's favor. So I wanted to get into that and give you my thoughts on that as well. Then we will continue our running back rankings. Today we will be covering the running backs in the AFC South. So we'll get into that. Actually, no. Before we get into that, we'll get into the injuries, injury updates. Actually, that's the fourth part of the show. We'll get into the injuries of Justin Herbert and DeAndre Hopkins. Then we'll get into the running back rankings. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some comments made by Devin White about the Eagles' collapse from last year. Now, he was a part of the Buccaneers, but, he had some comments on the Eagles' collapse and, what to expect from the team this year. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is recapping the Hall of Fame game from last night. Now, the Hall of Fame game did get cut short. There was a weather delay. I mean, the rain was really bad, so they ended up calling it, which was the right decision. Because, first of all, especially with this game, it's the first preseason game. There's no need to try to get the whole game in. But the Bears did win 21-17. So, if you bet on the game last night, I know the Texans were the favorites, but if you took the Bears, you got a little bit of change last night. It doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to go through the statistics here. So we had Davis Mills, Case Keenum, and Tim Boyle play for the Bears, or for the Texans, and then for the Bears you had Brett Rippon, Tyson Bagent, and Austin Reed. Davis Mills went 10 of 13, 102 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Case Keenum went 7 of 9, 78 yards, and a touchdown, no picks. Tim Boyle went 2 for 5 for 17 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Brett Rippon actually had a good day. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 11 of 15, 166 yards. Tyson Bagent went 2 of 3 for 16 yards, and then Austin Reed went 2 of 2 for 10 yards. Khalil Herbert was the leading rusher for the Bears. He had a 19-yard run. That was his longest run of the day. He had 35 yards in total. Roschon Johnson had 24 yards on the ground. He actually, started the game as the lead back for the Bears, and then Herbert came in and ended up being the lead rusher. The lead rusher for the Bears was J.J. Taylor. He had 16 yards rushing. Now, some players of the game, well, not really players of the game, but some standouts. Xavier Hutchinson had 5 receptions for 56 yards for the Texans. And Colin Johnson actually had a good game. He was a member of the Giants back in... He was with the Giants for a few years. He was also with Jacksonville. But yeah, I remember he was with the Giants as well. And it could be a depth piece for the Bears. Had a good game, made a couple of nice plays. Brett Rippon actually was making some good plays as well last night. Again, you take these with a grain of salt because, it's the preseason. But, again, Colin Johnson, I would say, was probably the MVP last night if I had to pick somebody. I did think it was interesting, though, that Roschon Johnson got the start over Khalil Herbert because I was thinking, Khalil Herbert's going to be, the backup to DeAndre Swift, but Roschon Johnson at least started the game. Now, Khalil Herbert, outgained him. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something to keep an eye on. Who's going to be, the the second back or the second string behind DeAndre Swift. Also, actually, another player, Cam Akers. So the Texans brought him in recently, and he's dealt with injuries over the course of his career, a couple of Achilles tears. And last night he actually did have a touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown. He had 2 receptions for 18 yards. He actually did look good on some runs that he had. So, that he could be a guy that's the number 2 back behind Joe Mixon. I know they also have Damian Pierce, and as well as Ungu Buale as well, who actually was kicking the ball for the Texans a little bit last year when Fairbairn got injured. That was against the Buccaneers. He only had 3 carries for 14 yards. But yeah, Brett Rippon for the Bears, I thought played well, made some good throws. So he's battling it out with Bajan for the backup quarterback job. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of the ones that stood out. No sacks for the Texans. I think the Bears had a couple of sacks. I know they had 1 sack, and that was from Byron Cowart. A couple of turnovers in the game. Cairo Santos went 3 for 3 in extra points. Fairbairn missed a 58-yard field goal late in the game. That would have made it 21-20, and that was pretty much when the game wrapped up. But also, the debut of the new kickoff was last night. It was interesting because when the game first started, I was like, what is happening? Because I was too busy looking at the formations of the 2 teams. I didn't realize the kicker was, isolated by himself because I was just so focused on that. But yeah, it's going to take some time to get used to that. I'm not. I don't know how I feel about it, and nobody really did anything on the kickoffs. I mean, they got shut down pretty quickly, those plays. But it's something different. The NFL's trying, so we'll see what happens there. But that's another thing as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's football. It was back. I mean, it obviously we want the regular season to get here, but this is our first game action. I mean, there was some sloppy playing. Guys were slipping. I mean, the first touchdown the Bears had, and didn't know how to pronounce the name at first, and we just said Quentin Tarantino. Tegan Quinteriano. No, I don't think that's how you pronounce it. But he scored the first touchdown, and player on the Texans slipped, and he just walked into the end zone. But yeah, that was the first touchdown of the game. Fairbairn kicked a 33-yard field goal. Rippon to Colin Johnson for 20 yards. That made it 10-7. Then Case Keenum to Cam Akers. That made it 17-7. Then Rippon to Sweeney, the other tight end, I believe. That was the other touchdown as well. I'm looking at the Texan stats. But yeah, Tommy Sweeney, he got the other touchdown. And then Colin Johnson then scored a second touchdown later. That was from 9 yards out. So, yeah, Colin Johnson. I mean, we know who the top 3 wide receivers are going to be for the Bears with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. But then after that, who's going to step up and, fill out the rest of the spots there. And Colin Johnson could be one of those guys, the way he played in this game, if he continues to do that here in the preseason. He's a big receiver. So, and it's better for him to be, more of that 4, 5, 6 guy, on the depth chart, as opposed to with the Giants when he was near the top, because the Giants, wide receiver core was pretty thin when he was on the team. So, but yeah, that's a couple things to look at. The backup quarterback jobs. And again, Cam Akers, was making plays last night. Like I said, Colin Johnson. So, I mean, and that's more so from the, offensive perspective. I mean, there wasn't really any big plays on defense that I can recall. I think when the Texans had the ball, I think Davis Mills almost threw a pick that should have went the other way if the defensive back caught it. Could have went the other way. But yeah, there was no big plays on defense. But yeah, I mean, football's back, and I'm so happy that it is. Next week, everybody's going to be playing, so there'll be more stuff to talk about. But yeah, the Bears get the win in 3 quarters, basically. This is the final score, 21-17, and yeah, we'll see when these two teams meet in week 2 on Sunday Night Football. It should be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, the Texans went right down the field to start the game. I was like, wow, the Bears' second string is not good at all. But no, they ended up pulling it out. Brett Rippon said play well. So, he's gonna give Tyson Bagent a run for his money for that backup quarterback job. So that's something to keep an eye on, if you're a Bears fan. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think, though, about the game. What were some of your reactions from it? But like I said, we'll get the real deal in week 2 when these two teams meet, and it should be a lot of fun, you hope. So, yeah, we are going to take our first break now. When we come back, we will talk about the lawsuit the decision getting overturned in the NFL's favor. I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to cover it again and give you an update on that because that made news while the game was going on last night. So that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.